Boston College, big favorites over Pitt. In a game like this in years past, I'd be worried about it. Under Bill O'Brien, not so much.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the publisher of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. We're going to have a little bit of recruiting news and a coaching update on our last segment. We're also going to talk about why development has been key under Bill O'Brien. And we're going to kick things off by talking about this Pitt game because we're 3 days away. BC is going to play the Pitt Panthers, a team that has lost 4 in a row. Pat Narduzzi, as I said on yesterday's show, had started this season off making Pitt look like the turnaround team of the year. They won their first 7 games. They looked, they hired a new offensive coordinator, a guy that I thought would be like oil and water with Pat Narduzzi. Narduzzi is the run the ball control. I mean, didn't he fire Mark Whipple because he didn't run the ball enough? Here is a guy that's, basically all tempo, all speed, everything. And hey, the offense picks up. They start winning games. Everyone's talking about Pitt. They're ranked, all this stuff. Things fall apart fast. 4 straight losses for Pitt, including getting pasted last weekend by Louisville. Now, BC lost to Louisville too. It's a closer game than what Pitt did. Pitt wasn't even in the ballpark of this game. So you have BC. They've won 2 out of the last 3 games. You have Pitt, who've lost 4 in a row. If you take your logic brain here, you have one team going in the right direction, Boston College. I mean, even BC's loss, they were in it to the very end against a potential playoff team. You have Pitt with 4 straight losses, and credit to Pitt, they also held their own against Clemson, a potential playoff team, but then blew it at the end. When you're making your thoughts about what this game looks like, it should be an easy win for Boston College. Like, if you just look at where things are at right now, Pitt just lost their starting quarterback, the one that had been Eli Hosteen, the one that's been dynamic in getting their offense going, the one that had, a transfer from Alabama looking good. You lost Rodney Hammond. You've lost a couple of their starting offensive linemen, and they're having issues with the pass, stopping the pass rush. You look at all the issues that Pitt has, and you start to wonder, like, how is BC going to match up against this? Because they're not looking good. And the way BC's playing, BC just went out against a bowl-eligible team and blew them out of the building. 2 weeks ago against Syracuse, they beat a very, a good Syracuse team and put up enough points. So on paper, that 5.5-point spread that they have, I would say Boston College is the favorite easily here. And you don't want to call this an easy win game. Nothing is ever easy for Boston College. Unless you're playing Duquesne, nothing's easy. But if I was a betting man, I would think BC's going to win this. They're playing at a high level right now. Defense is forcing turnovers. They're getting pressure. The offense is moving the ball. You got Grayson James unlocking all sorts of good stuff on this offense. Will Long is calling the game of his life right now. In years past, we Boston College people, we are wounded animals. We have seen the Tom O'Brien failures. Remember those Tom O'Brien days where you would be winning all these games, and then you'd have that one game where it was a gigantic letdown. It just happened every year. You saw that. You saw enough out of Steve Adazio and Jeff Hafley where you play against teams that you should be on paper better than. And somehow it either was a close win or a loss. So everyone here that's watching this, that's a Boston College fan, is gun shy at saying that this should be an easy win. But my thought is, this team compared to any other team in the last 15, 20 years, other than, it's actually, other than 2007, 2008, is very well coached. I trust that Bill O'Brien is going to have this team ready, that this team will not have a letdown against Pitt. Like last year, look at what happened last year when you played Pitt. Pitt was 3-9, or I don't know, I forget what they were, 2-8 at that point, 2-7. And they go down to Pitt and they lay an egg. But wasn't that the hallmark of Jeff Hafley? No matter who you were playing, he always played down or up to wherever they were at. He never could just dominate a team. Never happened. It never happened under Hafley. I think that's different than Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien is going to have this team prepared. He's got them focused. He has them ready. He's going to have a game plan that's going to expose the weaknesses of Pitt. Look at the brilliant game plan that they had defensively against UNC last week. What was that? What was everyone, including myself, worried about? It was Amarian Hampton. And they schemed him out of that game. He was completely a non-factor. Now, this has to happen when all your team is clicking, because you can scheme out all sorts of things on defense. If your offense, like when Thomas Castellanos was here, isn't working, it's going to eventually fall apart. But this offense is clicking. So everything from well-coached offenses to well-coached defense, a quarterback that is playing at a high level right now, this makes me a little more confident that BC is not going to have a letdown game, that they're not going to have a WTF moment where you're going, what the heck just happened? Pitt is so beaten up. They are struggling to get to the finish line here. This is a chance. And I think Bill O'Brien is like a shark in water. He's going to know exactly what to do with this team to get them ready at home on senior day to go out and beat a team like Pitt. I trust him. I think this is what you brought him in to do. You brought him in not only to make yourself competitive against teams that aren't that are better than you. We saw that against SMU. I mean, we really haven't, other than maybe like a half of that Virginia Tech game, we really haven't seen BC just get flat out blown out. They're in everything. But we brought him in so that he takes care of business. And this is a take care of business game for Boston College. They just need to go out there, do their thing, and they're going to beat Pitt. And I think they're going to. In our second segment, I want to talk about one piece that has come along this year that really does differentiate Jeff Hafley and Bill O'Brien, and that is development. I'm going to explain what that means in just a moment. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It's not just the NFL. They have NHL, basketball, college football. If you're not in the state of Massachusetts, you see that 5.5 point line for BC and Pitt. You're saying, "Oh, BC is going to cover that well." You can get in there and get that. If you're watching the NFL, they have player props. Like as I said yesterday, if you had followed partially part of my parlay with Zay Flowers, 50 yards plus receiving in the game, that was easy money right there. So get yourself started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all for listening. And if you're done with this podcast, you're looking for a second listen, you're like, I like this Locked On stuff. Go check out the Locked On ACC podcast with Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs. They do a daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. You can find that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, we have been talking about the differences from Jeff Hafley to Bill O'Brien all year long. It's clear that this program is heading in a different direction and feeling confident about a lot of different parts of this team heading forward. And one of the biggest keys, whether you're looking at Grayson James, where you're looking at the defensive line, anywhere on this roster, maybe other than the punter, the big key for the way that BC is kind of ending this year strong is that the coaching staff have done an excellent job of developing their players. You have watched guys, perfect example, Quintavious Hutchins, a kid that started the year off buried in the depth chart. He comes along this year, and by the 3/4 through the year, he's making plays. He's got interceptions. He's got sacks. He's become a valuable contributor. You look on the offensive side of the ball, Jordan McDonald, a guy, if you were to ask me a month ago, I would have said, I don't know what they saw in what Jeff Hafley saw in him. He is nothing. He's probably going to end up transferring because I don't see a role with him on this team. Well, what does he do? He develops and he plays well at practice, catches the eyes of the coaching staff, and boom, he's getting 13 to 14 snaps a game now. You could look anywhere on this lineup. The secondary is a huge example of this with Ryan Turner, Omar Thornton, Carter Davis. All of these guys are just getting better and better as the season goes along. And that, my friends, is coaching and development. And this is a huge difference between Bill O'Brien and the staff before them. You might have seen pieces of this with Jeff Hafley. I look at Max Tucker in the SMU game last year, but I fail to see the amount of development under Hafley that I see in just months under Bill O'Brien and his staff. His staff have got guys coming up that you're like, oh, he's going to be good. Look at Joe Marinaro, linebacker, a preferred walk-on just 2 years ago, is now a linebacker starting, and I'm going, I like watching him play. He's doing well. You know, this is happening up and down the lineup. And again, this is what good coaching can do. And this is the kind of coach Boston College needs. Because as I've said before, recruiting is going to be hard at Boston College. It always is. You're never going to fill your roster with blue chip recruits. You may get a couple 4-stars here and there, and maybe there'll be a freshman like, we just saw with Ashton McShane or Omar Thornton that can just jump in and play. But for the majority of the guys you bring in, you have to develop them. You have to coach them up and make them better. Under Jeff Hafley, I don't know if I saw that. So many guys that came through left, and then you saw them play at like a MAC school, and they were like, whatever they were, but they never developed into a Power 4 player. We're seeing a completely different shift with Bill O'Brien, to the point now where he's bringing in a recruiting class, and I'm like, he's going to coach them up. He's going to get them ready, because that's what this coaching staff does. They're doing whatever they're doing at practice, and I've sat there and watched them. The attention to details, the way that they're going, into every practice, every situation, and going through, this and that, and getting things going, that is going to make these players improve, and that is going to make your team get better. That's what I love. That's why I think that Bill O'Brien is a better fit for Boston College than Jeff Hafley was, because he's going to get these guys. He's going to have his staff there with NFL experience and get them ready to take that next step. So I'm watching this, and at the end of the season, you're seeing lots of guys fall down and get hurt. You lost Cam Arnold, you lost Turbo Richards, you're losing all these different players, but he's got that depth chart so coached up that the next guy is ready to step in. They're excited to take that opportunity, and they're doing it. That is why I'm excited about the future of this program, because he's doing what you need at Boston College, which is development. You see and hear about that. I know Hafley talked about development a lot, but the level of difference here is big. And it's not just the development, it's the importance of practice. Practice? Yeah, practice. Well, when you have guys balling out at practice, they're jumping up the depth chart. As we mentioned this on Monday's show with Mitch, Hafley had much more of a philosophy of working it through with your guys. Let them take their bumps and get better from that. And that's fine. Me personally, I love that there's guys out there that are earning it, as he always talks about. That's the philosophy of this team. They earn it, and then they can jump at they're getting up there at practice. Look at, like, again, I bring up Omar Thornton. There's plenty of safeties that probably, like Cole Batson that have been around, and Hafley would have probably just dealt with Batson. He's been around forever, but Thornton's having a stronger practice. He's going to get the starts. That I like. It's this competitive culture that also has the supportive development that is making this program go in the right direction. And this is just month 8, 9. He hasn't even had a full year yet. And that's why, again, I think these practices, like, whether you care about what bowl they go to or not, the extra 15 practices they're going to get with that staff is absolutely critical for where they're going. They need them. They need these practices because look at, again, we'll go to Grayson James. At today's press conference, Bill O'Brien said every practice he gets better. Well, wouldn't you want him to have 15 more practices to get better? This is perfect. So it's the projection of progression, not projection, progression of this team, and the way that they're building this program from the roots up, I think is what's making this team exciting. And what I'm really again, I go back to the transfer portal. Why I'm really excited to see, how does Bill really see the transfer portal? Is he going to actually utilize it the way that we think he is? I think he will, but I'm really curious to see how he does it. So we'll see more about that in a couple weeks. If you haven't already, get my little 247 here. If you want transfer portal news and you want the latest scoops on everything, come over to Eagle Insider right now. It's 75% off. You can get in and get all my elite analysis, all my scoops. I talk to the staff. I talk to players. I talk to recruits. I mean, I'm connected, right? For like $2 a month. It's like a little over $2 a month. If you want to support my work, it's the easiest way. You can sign up for the whole year for it's like $23, $24. Come on over. Just sign up at Eagle Insider. I think you'll enjoy it. It's all written work. I think you'll like what you get over there. Now, in our final segment, speaking of recruiting, I want to talk about recruiting and a big college football news item that happened and how it's going to impact the recruitment of a Boston College commitment. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Now we're going to do a little bit of a pivot here. I had recorded earlier in the day, and then I decided for my final segment, I wasn't going to talk about Zachary Thomas. I'm going to talk about the men's basketball team that just won the Cayman Island Classic. This was an incredible tournament for Boston College men's basketball as they won on a game-winning three-point shot by Josh Beadle with just seconds left in the game. This is the second game in a row Boston College had a heroic last-second shot to win it. In game 2 against Missouri State, it was Elijah Strong who hit the game winner in overtime. Not only that, but you had Donald Hand hitting big shots. You had Fred Payne hitting big shots in that game. The last 2 games were instant classics, which begs the question, at 6-1, is this team good? The Boston College men's basketball team went into this year going predicted to be, near the bottom of the ACC. They are now 6-1. They're the Cayman Island Classics. And I know you beat Missouri State, you beat Old Dominion, and you finished it off with a win against Boise State. But let me tell you something. Look at the KenPom rating of Boise State. They were 44th in the country. They're a good team. They were a tournament team last year. You just beat, to win this, a very good team. So this is exactly, I have to say, I am stunned. This is how the season has started so far, the Eagles. Especially after what we saw in that VCU game where they just looked completely out of their element. They just didn't look competitive at all. This team has some heart to them. And I have to say, I love some of the players that they have, starting with Elijah Strong. Elijah Strong, to me, is BC basketball at its core. Like the the hustle, the way to win. Like he's not the most, I mean, he's kind of like an odd shaped basketball player, to be blunt, but he does everything that you would ask for out of a winning player. Like every game, like he just hits shot after shot. He makes the big plays. He does everything. He's a winner, and after losing Quinton Post, who was obviously the biggest star you had, you can build the team around Elijah Strong and Fred Payne and Donald Hand. Those three in general are your guys that you can really build around. Now, Fred Payne isn't even a starter. And I think he had 18 points in game number 2. Like he's going to have to get out there soon. And you got to get him some minutes. But what a win for Earl Grant in this program, because you got a tournament that I think a lot of folks were looking at going, who are these teams? You had South Dakota State and High Point in there, and it's just a whole bunch of mid majors that no one's heard of. But I had said you picked a tournament that you could potentially win, and that's good because you needed to get this team together before you started the ACC season. The last thing that this program needed was to put together a gauntlet out of conference schedule that would cause them to go into ACC play with a whole bunch of losses and not feeling very confident in themselves. Well, guess what happened? BC wins 3 games in a row. They are now, 4 out of 5 now. They get to play Dartmouth again. Now, hopefully that won't be a trap game. But you have the potential, other than maybe South Carolina, of just winning out your out-of-conference schedule. I mean, who else do you have left? You have Stonehill, Farley Dickinson. You've got a bunch of just mid-majors and lower-ranked teams that you should take advantage of and just grab some wins. So a tournament win, I don't have I'm doing this before this the stat sheets come out. I can't remember the last time BC basketball won a tournament. Remember last year it was the Hall of Fame Classic? That was a disaster. They lost to Loyola Chicago. They had 2 losses in that tournament out of 3. And the years before it always felt like BC's lose. Oh no, was it last year? No, last year was the one they lost to they went to the Bahamas or something like that. And whatever it was, the last 2 seasons, both of them were disasters because last year they lost to Tarleton State. But you win this one. The players get a great moment. They get to go to the Cayman Islands. They get a trophy. Donald Hand Jr. is the MVP. This is a cool moment for the program. And honestly, it's all you can ask for. This is a rebuilding year for BC basketball. You lost a ton of talent. And I think everyone just had questions going in. Like I had questions, and I think it's fair to ask them, right? That you had all these parts. You have Roger McFarland from Southeast Louisiana and Dion Brown from UMBC. And you have Josh Beadle, who hits his game winner. Josh Beadle hit 12% of his 3-pointers last year, and he comes out and he hits this hot, tough out of timeout shot to win it for the Eagles. So you get all these things together. You didn't know what was going to happen. They're starting to figure it out. You're starting to see the bench shrink, which is good because you get guys playing like Luka Taves and Kanye Chanda at the beginning of the season that you're just like, they need some time. They can't be playing right now. But you see the talent starting to pop up. Jaden Hastings playing well. Chad Venning has had his moments. I know he can be frustrating at times, but he's even getting better. But an excellent win for the men's basketball program, a win that they desperately needed. And so congratulations to them. And, I think the last thing I want to say about this is next year, I hope whatever tournament they go to, it's not on Flow Sports, because Flow Sports, it looked like it was shot on whatever video you saw, it looked like it was shot on an iPhone. And B, I think everyone who did it had to drop $20 for every single game that they wanted to watch. Please don't do that again. Let's just get on CBS Sports, one of those tournaments is on CBS Sports Network or something like that. So at least we can all watch it again. But anyways, cool moment. And I think a shocking moment, because I don't think anyone, I saw that they were playing Boise State, and I said, they were 10.5-point underdogs in that game. They still came out and won, because as Earl Grant says, they say underdogs, we're under God. Remember that comment he had last year? Well, anyways, I'll be back again on Friday for our episode with Mitchell Wolf as we preview the Saturday's game against Pitt. On Saturday, I'll do a post-game show, and then we're into bowl season and transfer portal and all sorts of good stuff. We'll have it all covered here on Locked On Boston College. Thank you so much. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Come over to Eagle Insider if you have not done so already. Subscribe. It's 75% off. It's only like $2 a month. You're going to get killer inside scoops from a guy you trust. You guys trust me, right? You get me, you get Mitch. Mitch does all his film analysis on there. If you have not seen a Mitch film analysis, go over there and sign up today because his film analysis are incredible. Check those out. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.